Hello, everybody. I'm Wally with Darkroom Software, and today I'm coming to you from our regular offices. I'm back in the office today doing some of these recordings, so don't tell anybody. All right? No, it's okay. But anyway, we're still doing some social distancing, and I'm in my office with my door closed, so nobody's around. But I am broadcasting today from our normal office in Plano, Texas. And this is the third installment in our, I guess you could say, coronavirus training series. But I hope everybody's doing well, staying safe, and using the time to maybe catch up on some backlog of work or do some training or something. So that's what we're here for. Darkroom is here. Our support staff are still working and available if you need us. So here we go with some training. This third segment will be more advanced topics. We're going to cover green screen. Let me refer to my list here. We're going to cover some template creation for green screen. We're going to cover email and setup and so on, some slideshow details, and also booth control. So a lot of neat stuff we're going to talk about now. So all right, let's get started. Okay, this is Darkroom Booth, and this is a sample template that is in the software. It's called Sample Green Screen Selection. And if you notice in the Screens tab, we have this template that's included as well, and also this print template. And you can use this template as a guide for setting up green screen selection. So Darkroom has a feature called green screen selection. Let's say that real fast, where you can use it to show different green screens and let people choose which one. Now, there's no real limit. We get asked that a lot. How many can we do? There's no solid limit within the software, but there is a lot of practical limits there. If you've got a line of people, if you give them, 20, 30 backgrounds to choose from, they're going to be there all day, and you don't necessarily want that. So let's switch over here to this particular template and talk about how this template is arranged. So this is a basic template, comes with the Darkroom software, so if you want to follow along, you can pull it up right now and do that. It has two elements in this template. This is just a single photo 4x6, and if I move the photo node out of the way, you'll see a background. So there's the background layer. And then here is our photo layer. This is where the photo taken during the booth session will go, and that's where you see the big white one. I mentioned in Booth Basics in the first seminar that the difference between a green screen template, just to look at it and be able to tell, is the fact that it's not a gray box. So if you have a normal template, it'll look like this. All right, so you got the gray solid box. If you're using a green screen template, then that green screen template will have it be clear. See here, I'm selecting chroma key, and so you'll see it like this. So it'd be a white, 1, 2, 3, but with whatever's behind it showing through. So the photo node would be clear. That's the key difference. Sometimes people go to an event and they may be having some unpredictable results or problems, and it's because they're using a green screen template without a green screen. And so if you're doing that, you can get some pretty unpredictable results. So let's double click on that, and I'm going to show you the setting in here. So if you look right here in the photo object under transparency, the very last option says chroma key, green screen or blue screen background. So that's what you would check to set that for green screen. And then you can also just add whatever background you want. Now, a lot of times people email and say, well, what can we use as a background? Well, it can be many things. It can be a PNG file or a JPEG file, just a simple photo. You want the resolution to match whatever your output is going to be. So if you're doing a 2x6 strip and maybe it has 3 photos on it, that's a pretty low resolution photo. For the smoothest operation, it's best if you do match that output resolution and you don't use an image size big enough for a billboard to print a 2x6. The reason for that is because it can cause the software to have to downsize that. And if you've got a big, huge, 20, 30 megabyte file that's having to be downsized to a tiny postage stamp for a 2x6, that does take time, so that can slow operation. So the best thing to do is match your graphic for your background to your output size as close as possible. And the general rule of thumb for that is 300 dots per inch. So if you are doing a 4x6, you multiply 4 times 300, you get 1200. If you take the 6 times 300, that's 1800. So a 4x6 in this case would be 1200 by 1800 pixels. And that's how big that is. Okay, so once you set that up, you set it for green screen and everything, then you got your print template done. Now, in this particular case, this one is set up to be able to do green screen selection. So if you look right up here, you'll see here's our background layer in the top right corner. That's our background. And if I double click on it, you'll see right here, if you're just using a single graphic, one that's not going to change, then you just uncheck, or you just check the single graphic, and then you choose edit, locate your graphic, and there you go. But if you're using, in this case, a graphics list, we call it, where you're choosing and letting people choose what image they're going to use, then you would select graphics list. Now, when you do that, I'm going to, just to show you how that looks, I'm going to click the single one, and then you just locate your background, okay? But in a graphics list situation, when you click edit, you'll see it has some more elements to it. So with a graphics list, you give it a name. Okay, now the name, you know, it's generally best to use it something simple so that it's easy to remember, because you're going to be typing that name for, you know, several different situations. You're going to use it in both the screen and the print template and everything. So in this case, I called it BG Scene, so background scene for short. So BG Scene is the name of my graphics list. You could just call it background, you could call it whatever you want, but I suggest something simple and not, you know, I'm going to use the background from New York City and, you know, it's 20 words long or anything, so something simple. Then if you look down below, you'll see these are the backgrounds that are in the graphics list. Now, I also suggest that you make those things simple and don't use any spaces or anything. In this case, I've used 001, 002, 003. Each one has got a D on it, and then .jpg. So 001.d.jpg, etc. Those are my 3 backgrounds. Now, the reason that's important is because in both the screen and print template, every template involved in this particular case, you want the name of the graphics list to be the same. You want the names of the images to be the same, and you want them in the same order. Okay, so when we create our screen template, we're going to also create one called BG Scene, and we're going to put those same backgrounds in that same order. So that's critical. If you set this up and for some reason it's not choosing the correct background, it is most likely because you have one of them out of order. Or the name is different, not correct. Okay, so once you set up your graphics list, we're going to click on that, and that's how we set up our graphics list. That's our print template. That's simple and that's done. So let's save that and get out of that. And I'm going to get out of here, and I'm going to go now to our screen template, and that's where it gets a little bit more involved. So let's open the screen template. Now, if you look at this screen template, this is also a sample template that comes with the software. I'm going to fill that, get that white line out of there. Okay, now if you look here, we've got a live view, and then on the left hand side we have 3 little thumbnails, and then down at the bottom we have a preview and a next. So there's several different ways you can choose a background for a graphics list. You can use buttons like I have down at the bottom that say previous and next, and that just rotates through them, so when you hit next it goes to the next background. That can be great if you wanted to use that. However, it's not necessarily the best way to do it, because if you have very many backgrounds, people will be there, you know, going back and forth and back and forth. Well, I think I like that one better. Let's go back and look at that one, and back and forth. So that can take time, and so it may not be best for you to do that. But if you use the thumbnail, then people can see it, and when they select it, they can go to it. So let's see how to do that. All right, first of all, I'm going to move my live view out of the way. This is my background. You can see over here in our template items list, I've got graphic background right there. I'm going to double click on it and then click right over here on edit, and you're going to see it looks exactly the same. It's got the same backgrounds, the same name, and they're in the same order as our print template. So that's critical. Same name, same backgrounds, same names, and same order. Okay? All right, so once you do that, I'm going to get out of that one. Then you want to put your live view over the top of that. Now you want to line that all up so that your live view is, inclusive in the same areas and everything, and that's where people are going to see themselves. So if I double click on the live view now, you also want to set it for chroma key. See right there where you under transparency you have none or chroma key. So if you're using a green screen, set it to chroma key. All right, so let's do that. Now then, let's look over here at our thumbnails. Now, over on the right-hand side, I've just got a normal start button and I've got a reprint button. Those are just like standard with any other screen. They don't have anything to do with green screen. But on this side, you'll see a thumbnail. Now, these are the same backgrounds that I used in the graphics list. They're just reduced down in size, and I'm using them as a button. So this is not a preview of the photo. This is a button that the person is going to choose to pick that background. So it's just a thumbnail of the image that I'm using as a button. So if I double click on this button now, then in the graphic, I've chosen the name of the background. Okay, it's a single graphic, so I'm using the name of the background to use as a thumbnail. But if you look down here at the bottom, here's where the magic comes from. Booth command. That's going to be telling the software what to do when someone touches that button. So I'm going to click edit so you can see it. What I'm telling the command is choose graphic. So what I'm saying to the software is when someone touches this button on a touch screen, I want the button to choose a graphic. And I want it to be from the graphic list BG scene, and I want it to choose the first one in the list. Does that make sense? Okay, so choosing graphic, I'm choosing it from BG scene, and I'm choosing the first one. Now you can also choose to do a start session, if you want to, or you can have them press a separate start button. I would prefer in this situation to use the separate start button so they can get back in position after they make their selection, but that's up to you. So the key elements here: choose graphic, that's the command. BG scene is the graphics list we created, that's the name of it, and then I want it to choose the second one. Okay, so we're going to click OK, and OK there. Now then on the second thumbnail, same scenario. We use the same basic command, choose graphic, BG scene, and this time we're going to choose background 2. Okay, and then the same thing with the third one, only we're going to change that to background 3. All right, so choose graphic, background scene is the graphics list we're going to choose from, and we're going to choose the third one in the group. Now if you look here in the drop down, there's an all graphics. Okay, so let's just say, for example, you wanted to give people an option of choosing a background and a foreground. Okay, you can put 2 sets of thumbnails or 2 different sets of buttons on there where they can choose those independently, but in most cases you're going to want those to go together. So let's say, for example, you're doing magazine covers. Let's just take that for example, and you've got Sports Illustrated, you've got some other magazine, Outdoor Life, whatever, and there's a background and a foreground that goes with each one, so that you want those to change together. You don't want someone to use the Sports Illustrated background with the Outdoor Life foreground, so you want those to change together. So in that case you would choose all graphics, so that every background or every graphics list in this group would all change together, and you would match those up, index 1, index 2, index 3, so they match up. Now if you want to change them independently, then you just choose the background and have a separate set of buttons for this graphics list versus that graphics list. That makes sense? Okay, so let's get out of that, and Right. Now, I'm going to show you, again, the previous to next buttons. They're one option you can do. If you have very many backgrounds, it can be kind of a waste because people are going to sit there and goes back and go back and forth and back and forth. So in this case, I've used a button, and the Booth command is next graphic. Okay. In the other one, it's previous graphic. So that's the button command. So when they touch that button, it just rotates to the next graphic in the list. And it'll just rotate all through all of them. So you can use either one. Most people wouldn't use both, but you could. But the thumbnails work really good. All right, so let's exit out of this and over here. Now let me, I'm going to pull up my simulated background here. One second. I should have already done this. I had a background chosen for this. One second. What I'm doing right now, in case everybody's wondering where I went, is I wanted to get a green screen image for my simulated live view, so you'll see that with an actual image. So I should have done that in advance, but I didn't. Okay, so let me make sure my camera's on. All right, and my live view is working. I apologize for the delay. Yep, there's my... Okay, so now then, let's go back to our output section. Now I'm going to run a session, and you're going to see... So here we go, and if I press the space bar to begin, there's my live view. And if you see like that right there, let me back out just a second, enable my mouse pointer so you can see that, what I'm pointing to. Okay. And I'm going to set the live view to always on. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. Okay, so if you see something like this, generally speaking, it's probably your white balance is not correct. So your white balance on the camera can cause this to happen with your live view. Typically, the output photo will be better and more accurate, but this sort of thing right here is typically caused from white balance on live view. So let's see, if I choose a different background, you can see where I'm clicking on it, it's changing to the different background. Okay, I can also do that with the previous to next buttons, or I can just choose it like that. So let's choose a different one and start a session. And I'm going to run a couple of sessions here so you can see how it changes the background. All right. And so now we'll let it cycle around and do another session with a different background. And so start there again. 3, 2, 1. And there's that. I'm going to back out now and go over here to the Prints tab. And so now you can see my finished photos there, each one with a different background and the background that I chose. And as I mentioned in its closer up view, the live view was what was the problem with the dropout not working real well, and that's probably just a white balance thing because I'm wearing in this particular picture a nearly green shirt. But you can see in the final dropout, Darkroom does a great job of dropping that out. Now let's just take a second, and in the event that you had a situation where you needed to use a blue screen, so let's say you're doing an event for St. Patrick's Day, and everybody's going to be wearing green. So you can actually use a chroma key blue screen, and in Darkroom, there's an article on how to do this in detail, but if you look right here in Darkroom, if you double click, so you take a sample photo, all right, take a sample photo session, and then double click on it in the Photos tab. When you get to here, if you look up here in this corner, you'll see green is selected, but if I choose blue, now it's not going to drop out because there's not a blue screen, but then you come up here to Attributes and Save to System Defaults. that changes darkroom to look for a blue screen instead of a green screen. So that's just the one-off occasion that you might need to do a blue screen instead of the green screen. Okay. Under normal circumstances, the green will be just fine. You're going to do mostly green. So you can see how it saves those images out that way. Now let's just say, for example, you're also doing the save output, and you want the image to have the same background that the person chooses. So in that particular situation, with copy originals, save output's going to save whatever they chose. But if you go to copy originals and you want to save the original photo out with the same background, you would create a single photo template with the same graphics list, and you would add it right here. And then every time a session is done, it will take that raw green screen photo, made it with the correct background, and save it out as well. Okay, so that's setting up a graphics list. Not as complicated as it sounds. The main things you need to keep in mind is the graphics list needs to be the same name, the same images, and the same image names in the same order. Okay? All right. Next on our list, I want to talk just a little bit about setting up email and text messaging, and we'll talk about that for a second. In the main section, you'll see photo email and photo email to, and then photo to phone, and those are options to let you text or email a photo to someone, so they can choose that themselves. First of all, you go to the global settings section, and in global settings under email and online accounts, you would set up your email address. Okay, in this case I'm using a darkroom software address, so you'd set up your email address. You want to make sure that works, so if you come here and you click test, that should clear the test and tell you that it's okay. If not, then you either have an internet connection that's blocked, or you have something wrong in the information or something like that. So you need to resolve that and make sure that passes the test. Then you want to add in your Twilio account. So in this case, you would add in your SSID and authorization tokens. Those are from Twilio. You get that information from them. If you click test, it prompts you to put in a phone number to send a test to. I'm not going to put my phone number in for that, but anyway, it would send you a text message and let with an image attached, and make sure that that's working correctly. You get those two pieces of information from your account from Twilio. So Twilio is pretty inexpensive. It's a penny or so per image sent. It's much more reliable in most cases, especially in the latest version of Darkroom. Once upon a time, in older versions of Darkroom, you had to use a Dropbox account to be temporary storage, because Twilio does not save the image online. So the way that the whole process works is the image gets posted to an online storage facility of some kind. Then Twilio sends the information with the phone number, gets the link from that online storage, and then sends the photo that way. So Twilio requires some sort of online storage. In the beginning, we used Dropbox and it worked well, but as time has gone on, Dropbox got to be pretty unreliable because of increased security measures and things. And so many times people would get a text with no image or something. So about 6 months ago, we dropped that. We dropped Dropbox from that requirement at all. So you, with the current version of Darkroom Booth3, you do not need a Dropbox account. We have our own server that's built for that purpose that the images go to temporarily, and it's a much more reliable way of doing it. So I would strongly suggest, if you send very many text messages, that may be beneficial to you right there. Okay, once you get those things set up and tested, and they work, many times when we see people that call support and they have one that doesn't work, some sort of a problem or something like that, it's caused by typically one or two things. One, they didn't test their accounts with Twilio and with email before they got to the event. They're using a public Wi-Fi that may be blocked for spam, so that doesn't allow anything to send, and that can be a problem. I would always use my own hotspot if it were me, through your cell phone company or something. The other thing is they just didn't test it. They just get there and try to set it up when they get there, and maybe they don't know how that works or something. So in many cases, those are the problems that we see. So once you set up your account, then you come over here and you can check the box right there for photo email. In most cases, all of these things can just remain at the default. You probably want to change the file size. I think the default is preview size, and that's pretty low resolution. You don't need to add a template here unless you wanted to send a different template than the one you're outputting. Okay, so if you want to send a different template, then you would use that. But otherwise, you just leave that blank. Okay, so we got that set up. Then let's come down to photo to phone. So if I check photo to phone, same options. Twilio is what we're using, so it's going to be grayed out. I can click right here and I can add a text message of whatever I want to go out, your company name or something. It is limited to 160 characters with most carriers, so be aware of that. You don't want to put a 3-paragraph statement in there. And then you also want to set the file size. Now, in most cases, carrier limits are going to apply, so I would recommend medium. The problem with many times text messaging is carrier limits can vary. So what that means is if you're sending an image to an AT&T customer using Twilio, and maybe Twilio, in that area wherever that customer is, AT&T's having a trouble keeping up with the load of everybody sending text messages or something at the same time, they can possibly deny that because it's not from one of their phones. So sometimes that can be a problem. You're involving several different processes here with Twilio. The image itself, it's going to an online depository. It's being sent by Twilio, and the carrier itself has to accept it. So there's a lot of links in the chain, so to speak. All right, so once we get that set up, I'm going to click OK. So now I've got those two things checked. There's one other setting in the text tab down here where it says e-delivery. Okay, so this is the prompt that you can put in for what you would like it to say. In this case, would you like the photo sent to you? You can change that to whatever you like. Then you can also choose whether you want the prompt before or after a session. That's completely up to you. It's a personal preference. So you can put that information in there. So now I'm going to start a session, and it's the same. And so I'm going to choose this right here. There's our simulated live view. And our countdown should start. Oh, I got to push start. Okay, so there's where the prompt comes up and asks me if I want to send it by text or email. If I choose text, then it asks me for a phone number. I can put in my phone number and hit enter, and that sends that on out. Use cancel. If I want to send it by email, I can choose email, put in my email address, and then send it from there. It's got some hot buttons. Gmail, Hotmail, Yahoo are already in there. So for example, if I choose Hotmail, let's just make a boom. It's going to add the Hotmail for me. Over here, it would just add the .com if you didn't have that on there. So just .com. And you can also set up a custom one. I'll show you where to do that in just a second. But if you were, say, doing a job for a particular business like Darkroom Software, and everybody there is going to have a Darkroom Software email address, you could put in a custom one so they don't have to type darkroomsoftware.com every time. They can just choose a custom one. So I'm going to cancel that and cancel that, and we're going to get out of that. And I'll show you where to set up. So right here in the event, it's done on a per event basis, so that if you you can have different events with different URLs. So let's say darkroomsoftware.com. Okay, so let's choose OK there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into the event, and we're going to start a session here. There it is. I've got the timing set really short, so we don't have to sit here and wait for it to go through. That's the thing there. So I'm going to click there, and now you see I've got Darkroom Software. So if I were to do that, it would just type it all in for me. So that's setting up email and photo to phone. Okay, so let's get out of that. Now one thing that goes along with photo to phone, in the wrap-up tab, when it's all over with, you can choose Generate Email and Phone List. Now it tells me it's unavailable because I didn't send any. But if I had sent some, I could click there and I can choose to either save the file or just display it on screen. It's done in a spreadsheet sort of fashion. You can have two different versions. One just gives you the phone numbers. The other one shows you what was sent to that phone number. So you can see the file name of the image. It gives you a little more detail. So you can get that information right there to save out to send to people. Okay, let's see. Slideshow. Let's talk about Slideshow now. All right. So if we go to Slideshow, now in the most basic setup, when you start a slideshow, the slideshow is turned off by default, and you have basic and you have custom. So if you choose basic, then what you would get on a secondary monitor or on the main monitor, if you only have one in a between sessions sort of screensaver type mode, you'll get just one output photo at a time, the photo strip, whatever's printed out, and that would just show one at a time on the screen. But if you go down, I'm going to switch over to another event that I've pre-set up. If you click on custom, then the options drop down and you have an enormous amount of options. Now folks, the slideshow feature is very, very powerful. You can do a lot of really interesting and fun things with it, and it's very fun to do. So I'm going to show you some of those things and what they do. So if you look down through here, first of all, the time to show each slide. Now I've got mine set to 0, and you'll understand why in a few minutes, but you can choose how long you want the slide on the screen. So keep in mind what you're showing. If it's a still photo, 3 seconds or so may be plenty. But if you're showing a 30-second or a 40-second slow motion video, then you probably need to leave it on screen a little longer than that so that people have time to see it. So just keep in mind the time to show each slide. Enable navigation controls. If you're using a separate computer with a touch screen to display it through Wi-Fi, you can actually have enabled navigation controls where they could pause and go backwards and forward if you wanted to. Not too many people use a touch screen like that, but you could. Enables transition effects. So if you click that right there, you'll see just a series of various types of transitions that you can do that do different things. You can add background music. The background music only plays if you are doing it on a separate screen by Wi-Fi. So for instance, if your photo booth is in the main room of an event and then out in the hallway they have closed circuit televisions and you want to put the slideshow out there, then you can connect a computer to that, go to the IP address, get to the slideshow that way. I'm going to show you how you do that in a little bit. Through Wi-Fi, and it would play the background music there. It wouldn't play it on the main booth because you don't want that to play there. It might conflict with other things. So you can also set the most recent images. So if you're doing an event that has 5,000 images, you only want to show the last 50 or so, you can set that. Then the image max width and max height depends on what you're doing. Most monitors, 1920 by 1080 is their maximum resolution. So in most cases, that's plenty. It's going to scale it down to where your image fits within that. So if you're doing a 2-inch vertical photo strip, it's going to be 1080 tall and then whatever wide to finish out the strip. So 1920 by 1080 is a good size. This is also the resolution that's being sent by the kiosk. So, you don't want to get that too small, but it's kind of a fine line. You'd have to, mess with it and find out what works best for you. You don't want it to take too long to transfer over, but at the same time, you don't want it to be too low resolution. So you can also display some text on the screen. This would be handy if you're doing the single screen between sessions where it's doing a slideshow of the like a screensaver on the screen. You can check that box and say touch here to start a session or something, just to kind of give people some information. Here you can change the background color. In most cases black would probably be a good choice, but you can choose whatever color you like. If you're doing a graphic over it like I'm doing in this particular example, then I chose black so nothing is showing behind it if it did happen to run off the edge or something. Here you can add a background graphic, so you can choose an image like this. I chose that image right there. And you can choose fit, stretch, or tile. If you choose tile, then it scatters it, overlaps it, everything on the screen. So you can choose those options and see which one you like the best. This adds a drop-down shadow to the image that can add some interest. You can take a look at that and see what you think about that. Also add a gap between images, so you can either have the image butt directly next to each other where they're touching, or you can have it add an automatic gap. Now, where to display? There's a lot of different options here, and each one needs a little bit of an explanation. So the first one is generate slideshow to disk only. If you're doing a remote Wi-Fi slideshow and you're not showing it on the direct main booth, then you probably want to set that to generate the slideshow to disk only. It's not going to display it on the main booth. It's only going to show it on the remote session through booth control. If you have a secondary monitor, you may want to put it on the secondary monitor. Now here's another feature that's in the most recent version or two. You can click on Identify Monitors. It shows you the number, so if you have more than two, like 3 or 4 monitors connected, you can determine which monitor that slideshow is actually on, and you can choose which one. So in that case, you would click Identify Monitor, find the A, B, or C, whichever one you want it to display on, and then set it right there. In this case, I have 3 monitors connected to this computer. So that's what that does. All right. This one also displays slideshow between booth sessions. So this would be like that screensaver I was talking about. So between sessions, it would come up on the screen and display that. Now, what to display? You can change your arrangement. Now, if you choose that, you'll see a little graphic representation. So this would be a single photo. This is 2 photos side by side. This is 1, 2, 3. So if you're doing photo strips, you may want to do them like that so that you see 3 on the screen at once. But there's lots of different arrangements that you can do. And then if you look right here, advance 1 image at a time. If you're doing something like this, let's see this one right here that says 1, 2, 3. Checking this box for advance 1 image at a time, when they move, the photo strip that's in number 1 will move over to number 2. Then it will move over to number 3. If you uncheck this box, all 3 would move off the screen together. So depending on the effect you want, you can choose to have it move from 1 to 2 to 2 to 3, or just all 3 move off together. Okay, let's see. Now, the next section is what you want to show in the slideshow. So in this case, in this illustration, and I'm going to show you in just a minute what the end result is, show original photos. Now the original photos are obviously the camera photos, and then I want to add them to a template. You'll understand in just a minute why I'm adding them to a template. So you can put the photos in a separate template than what your output is. And you can use that in a lot of creative ways. You could put a different logo on it. You could have them displayed slightly differently. You'll see what I'm doing about that in just a minute. Then you can see a checkbox for output image. That's this photo strip. Show alternate output, show videos. These are all things that you can do to change what you're putting in the slideshow. Now, if you look at this option right here, mix in photos from folder 1. What mix in photos do is it allows you to basically do just that. Mix in a photo that is maybe a logo or something. And in this case, you can set how frequently it moves in, and you can choose how many. So you just basically designate a folder. You put 2 or 3 images in it. It would be for a logo or something. Some other creative uses for that would be like if you're doing a wedding and you want to occasionally, maybe every 15th photo from the wedding, to mix in an engagement photo of the couple or something like that. Especially if you're a photographer and you want to advertise your engagement sessions, you could just mix in a photo like that every now and then, so just as it goes through. You could also put in a logo if you're doing a corporate event. You'll see that in just a minute when I play the example. You can mix in from different folders. Down here, if you're doing a survey, you can check this box and you can actually display the survey results, to see who's, getting more correct answers or something. Down here, you can actually generate an extra slideshow. So if you wanted to have a different slideshow on a remote monitor or something like that versus the main slideshow, you can change that and actually generate two different slideshows at the same time. So there's a lot of different options there. Now when you get down here below here, you know, generate an extra slideshow. All of these things, they're just secondary slideshows that let you generate different slideshows for different purposes. They have all the same options, so you just choose how you want to do that. So I'm going to turn those options back off. Now, composite slideshow allows something totally different altogether. You can actually put those two different slideshows on the screen at the same time in two different ways. So for example, in this one right here, I've got slideshow 1, slideshow 2. So let's say that I'm doing a slideshow with the original photos and with the output photos, or the videos versus the photo strips. I could have those on different segments of the screen. So it's dividing my screen in two. You can look down through here and see all the various options. You can divide the screen into a variety of ways, and you can put a different slideshow on each area of the screen. So you can do that as well. So I'm going to turn that back off because I'm not using that. Okay, now then, I want to show you a preview of how this slideshow that I've set up will work. So I'm going to click Preview, and I'm going to switch over to another monitor because it's running on a separate monitor. Okay, so there. You'll see that I've set this all up. The reason I'm adding those templates that I told you about is I'm taking the original photo and I'm inserting it in a template that has the clothespin and the rope. Okay, I'll show you those templates in just a minute. And it's dropping out the background and it's putting those photos in there to look like they're hanging off of that slide, that rope. And then there's my mix-in photo. That's the Darkroom Booth logo that's moving through there. And then you can see we got some more photos of Bill and his cousin, and as those just move through there. So I used different templates in that case so that my clothespin would be different directions. It wouldn't look all uniform and the same. So I'm going to switch back over to the main display so you can see the settings, and I can explain those in more detail. So if you look right here, these are my templates, okay? And I've got 3 different ones. So in each template, they're slightly different. One has the clothespin leaning one way, one has the clothespin leaning another way, and so on, so that they look different and it's not consistent. I also had the time to show each slide set to 3 or to 0 so that they would move continuously like that. If I had set it to 3 seconds, they would go on the screen, display 3 seconds, and then move off. Does that make sense? Then if you go right here to arrangement, I had it set to 1, 2, 3, so that's how they're moving across there. They're moving from 1 to 2, 2 to 3, and off. 1 to 2, 2 to 3, and off. So I hope that makes sense. I'm going to switch over now to the template section so you can see that template I was talking about. So first of all, there's my overall basic template. I'm going to get back out of that one. Here's how I did the templates that are with the photos in it. So I tilted that just a little bit, added a white border on it. I put my piece of rope in there, and I put in my clothespin. And then in the background is just plain white. And so I set here in this section right here under Choose Background, Transparent Background if saved to a PNG. So what that means is it's not going to have any background. It's going to drop that out. It's going to save it as a PNG and only show the photo and the clothespin and the rope. Okay, so that's how I did that. So I've got 3 different ones. You can see right there. There's 1, 2, 3. Dry line is the name of that one, and each one is tilted just a little bit a different way, and so you can see that. And then here's my logo that does the same thing. It's just dropping out the background. It shows the rope, the clothespin, and the logo. So let's get back out of that, and I'm going to go back to my slideshow section and show you that one more time. And let me switch over to that monitor. There we go. So now you can see how that's working. Hope that made sense. And it just shows you some of the power. Not everybody will do one this elaborately, but it just shows you some of the power that's available in the slideshow feature. You can do a lot of different things and get very creative with it. Okay, let's go back to the main display now. And one of the things I want to show you next is the booth control feature. Okay, now with booth control, You can use your cell phone, or you can use, oops, didn't mean for that to come up right there. That's supposed to be on my other monitor. Okay, you can use your cell phone or a tablet or something to completely control your photo booth. Okay, so let's show you how that works. You go to Global Settings for your event, and right over here on Booth Control, and you enable it right there. Now then, in the latest version, or in right here, you'll see the IP address. So your phone or whatever device you're going to use to control the photo booth on needs to be on the same Wi-Fi. So it's local Wi-Fi. Once you get it on the same Wi-Fi, then you'll go to this IP address. Okay, this is the IP address. It's going to be different for everybody, so don't worry about writing that down. It'll display it in the software. But once you do that, then the software will go to the phone and pull up the menu. We also added in the most recent version this QR code. So I know you can't necessarily see what I'm doing, but I'm pointing my phone with the camera open at the QR code, and I'm selecting, and it's taking me right to the menu. So now I'm going to switch over to another menu or another screen so you can see what this menu looks like. So this is my cell phone. You can't see my finger moving, but I'm scrolling up and down on that screen. And so there's a lot of different settings in here where you can do different things. So for example, I could show the slideshow. You'll see the slideshow right there moving on my cell phone now. If I turned the screen horizontally, it would look a lot better. And also, if it didn't have the address bar on there. So that's how that would look. So slideshow menu would let you choose if you were doing different slideshows, like I mentioned about doing a remote slideshow, different ones on different monitors, you could choose that there. Kiosk is another feature that Darkroom has where you can let people email, text, or reprint a photo right there in their on their cell phone or on a tablet that you provide. Here you can see the survey results if you're doing a survey. I'm not doing one right now. Different settings. Now this particular one right here is pretty cool, and I'm going to do a session so you'll see. When you're doing a session in Darkroom Booth from wherever you're doing it from, you can let people, whoops, hang on just a second. I did not mean to cover my phone. I want you to see what my phone is doing. So give me 1 second here to end that and turn off my slideshow. Okay, so now you can see my my phone. The slideshow come up and covered my phone. All right, so this is my phone on the screen, and I'm doing a session over here. And what you're going to see is as I take the session, it's going to pop up the photos taken on that little square window right there on my phone, so I can see the images taken as they're taken. And see, there it pops up. So as soon as the image is taken, before the photo strip is done, it's going to pop that image up right there. Now the advantage to that is if you're doing an enclosed photo booth, you can keep an eye on what people are doing from your phone. And if you look below that, you can completely control the photo booth, from your phone right there. That's a big advantage if you're, wanting to minimize the people touching the photo booth. You could completely throw it right here. You can take, retake, change graphics, choose black and white, color, whatever you want to do right there. And so that gives you a lot of advantages there. Booth controls. This is just, again, more controls without the photo transfer so that you can go down through here and choose different things. Start all sorts of sessions. Now, one of the things I wanted to point out down here is, if you can see my pointer, see this right here, booth lock and unlock and everything. I'm going to switch over to the main monitor so you can see the photo session. Okay, let me turn that on. All right. So if I switch over to my main display and you see, okay, there's my my start screen and everything else. Now, if I wanted to lock the booth, I could press booth lock. It pops up a prompt and asks me how many minutes. Let's say I'm going to put in 5, and then it goes to that. So it locks the booth. People can't use it. It just locks it, and I did that from my cell phone from a distance away. If I press booth unlock, it unlocks it, lets it go back to work. Maintenance lock is a little different. It says temporarily out of service, so you can use that if you want to, and it'll stay that way until you unlock it. Custom lock is kind of interesting because you can use a video, you can use a still photo, or you can use a GIF. And so what it does, I'm going to switch back over to the phone so you can see what that looks like. Okay, so now on my phone, you can see how I'm scrolling through the custom booth locks that I have to choose from. So, you know, you can pick one like that. And these are GIFs, but you can use a video or a still photo too. So if I choose that one right there, now I'm going to switch back to my main display. And so you see now what the booth is locked with that main display. And so now then you can unlock that as well, and it goes back to the main screen. All right. So that's pretty handy feature right there. Now another thing I wanted to show you is right here. You can start a video session, etc. But see the bottom corner where it says Force Special Winner? If you're using the Special Winner feature, you can set it to randomly choose someone, or you can choose it yourself here. So you can, you know, force it to pick the one that you want there. Okay. So let me back up again and go to another menu. Another thing that you can do if you go to Manage Album. So in Manage Album, it looks very much like the kiosk mode, except that it has one additional feature. And there it goes. So it has one additional feature, and if you look right there in that row of icons, you'll see a trash can. So in addition to texting, reprinting, etc., you can remove a photo from the slideshow. So this wouldn't be something that you'd want to let public access, but if you wanted it on your slideshow or on your phone, invariably somebody's going to walk up and go, hey, can I get a reprint of, you know, one a few minutes ago? In that case, you can find it and reprint it for them. Or if someone walks up and says, hey, you know, I just really don't like that picture of me that's in the slideshow, could you remove it? Well, then you can go here, find the photo, click the trash can, and remove it from the slideshow without interrupting the flow of the photo booth. So that's a great feature to be able to do that. Let's see. Okay, I think that covers most all of that. Oh, one more thing I wanted to show you, the custom controls. In the device control section, where it says custom controls there, in the device control section, you can set up various things that are triggered when you press a button, and you can have up to 20 of them. They can be a video, they can be an audio file, it could be a light that comes on with a fidget, a lot of different things that you set up previously. So for example, in a Halloween event, I've got a zombie video here, so that in the Halloween event you could randomly just hit the button and it would cause that video to play. That's better than doing it predictably, because nobody knows when it's going to happen if you do it randomly. So that's another feature that you can use with booth control. I hope that made sense and everybody, you know, enjoyed that and learned anything from it. Booth control is very powerful and gives you a lot of flexibility to do a lot of things. And if you have any questions, certainly give us a call. We'll be back with another seminar soon, and we'll keep doing them for a while. All right. Have a good day.